This is the Saratoga banjo, and the Saratoga is truly a master instrument. I always compare it, to the highest grade of banjos that probably was ever made. And let me tell you a little bit about it. When we started working together, Greg and Janet and I, about 12 years ago, we had a dream of making a banjo. They came to Switzerland and we started talking about, of how we could make banjos better. And I said, well, it's difficult to make banjos better. We have to find new voicings for banjos, different ways of getting for people to express themselves on these instruments. And so we thought we have to come up with a banjo that would be our dream, right? And so I sat down and it took a lot of research. I went to a bell foundry in Switzerland and we started working with different tone ring designs. And I had a few, original old tone rings that I brought to analyze and look at. And then one day, we reproduced a lot of the old tone rings. And one day, the boss of the company came to me and said, well, we've been doing these tone rings, and it's actually a very cheap material, that you're using, and it's actually doesn't have these real, great properties that you would use for a real bell, And I said, well, what is it then? And he said, well, it's a 2080 bronze that we use for bells, and the problem is that you have to have a great pressure, of the material itself to don't have any holes in the casting process. I don't want to bore you with some of these informations, but the exciting news was all of a sudden that they said, well, we can make a part as big as a tone ring, as small as a tone ring, and make it sound, in the same quality properties like, an 8-ton bell. And I said, well, why don't you make me one? And they said, well, it's quite difficult, but we can do that, So they did, and that was the result of this tone ring. And of course, then came the problem of making the right shape and the right, so it would respond and correspond with the rest of the instrument. And this is the result of it. It's the Saratoga. And what it can do is actually, it's a little bit lighter than other banjos, and it responds extremely quick, and it has a great note separation. That is remarkable for this instrument. But when you play it soft, the sustain is longer than a regular banjo. This is extremely long sustain for a banjo. This doesn't do the G string, go forever, right? And if you just take 2 notes. And it's so unbelievably clean. There's nothing that's not part of the sound, really. I mean, all the things that are not part of the sound are so light in tone that you can't hardly hear them. Truly magical, and then, but on the other hand, you turn around and you just go right back into, let's say, and it really separates the tone because you go a little closer to the bridge, and when you hit it, it just explodes. It just goes bang, and then it also stops again. But it's not dead. It's full of life, but it can do this. And this is why it's such an amazing, awesome instrument. So you can play a solo in Scruggs style, let's say, and you can hear every note pop out. Just pop, 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 pop. And then you go into the backup. have all these different tone colors that you can use. And I believe of all the banjos that I've ever played, any new Saratoga you can just take in your hands and you find dozens of tones that are usable and full expressive, and you can just put them into your music, and they're all on here. So you have all the highs you want. You can just really make it pop. You can make it sustain, and it doesn't get shrill. It doesn't have any dead spots. I think it's almost, I have to say, it's almost the ultimate banjo, you know. So I'm very proud of Greg when he started, putting these together and bringing them out there. And there's more and more, of course, a lot of professional players now play it, just to name a few, Tony Trischka and Net Nubarecki, there's a lot of people, who start playing this instrument because of its amazing abilities, I always compare it with a Ferarri or something, Other banjos seem like street cars, but this is really a racehorse, and that's why we call it Saratoga, because it can do all these things. I know that I start to really start to get flowery about this banjo, but I have to say, if you just do this, there's so much coming out, and there's no hiding. And I don't want to, sound negative now, but it's also a little bit more demanding to control. There is so much happening here, and there's so much that you can control that it takes a little while, to really find the spots that you really want to use. So it's a little bit more demanding. Like for instance, when I had the Eagle before, when I talked about the Eagle banjo. The Eagle banjo doesn't have as many options, in itself. It has its just perfect qualities to do its thing, but this has everything. So give it a try. Try it once if you see it somewhere, and you'll be surprised. It's a different tool.